Night fell over the quiet Ibadan neighborhood, warm and heavy. Joseph sat on his veranda steps, listening to the distant hum of generators and the chirp of crickets. Inside, his 2 children slept soundly. 3 years had passed since his wife, Adiola, died, and he had tried his best to raise their children alone. He'd had help, faithful, caring help, from Zainabu, the young house help who had served his family for years. Zainabu was practically part of the family, though always mindful of her place. She treated Joseph with the respect due a Yoruba elder and loved Funmi and Dele as if they were her own siblings. Thanks to her, the house still felt warm, even after tragedy. But on this particular evening, the warmth in Joseph's home couldn't reach the cold grief in his heart. Today marked the anniversary of Adiola's passing. He had gone through the motions of the day, but now, in the darkness, the loneliness pressed down on him. The electricity had gone out. NEPA had taken light again, so the house lay in gloom, except for a dim lantern glow inside. Joseph remained outside on the veranda, elbows on his knees, face in his hands, finally letting the tears come. Zainabu noticed he hadn't come in. Concerned, she draped a shawl over her shoulders and stepped out into the velvety night. She found him there, hunched over. "Sir, are you all right?" she asked softly, the gentle lilt of her voice full of concern. He quickly wiped his eyes. "I'm fine, Zainabu," he began, out of habit. But his voice broke on the lie. In the faint light, Zainabu could see the shine of tears on his cheeks. Without thinking, she knelt beside him. "It's okay, sir," she whispered. In Yoruba, she added, "Odara Masonu. It's all right. Don't be upset." Her soft reassurance cracked the last of Joseph's composure. A sob escaped him, and he turned away, ashamed to break down in front of her. Moved by his pain, Zainabu reached out and placed a tentative hand on his shoulder. Joseph reacted on impulse. He pulled her into his arms. She stiffened for a moment. Never in all these years had they touched like this. But she felt his body shaking, and her compassion overrode propriety. Gently, she returned the embrace. They stayed like that for a long moment. 2 lonely people in the dark, holding each other. Joseph breathed in the faint scent of wood smoke in her hair and the mild soap she used. The warmth of her body against him was a comfort he hadn't realized he craved. He pulled back slightly to apologize, but Zainabu raised her hand and brushed away a tear on his face. "You don't have to apologize for grieving," she said, eyes shining up at him. Her face was inches away, illuminated softly by the lantern light spilling through the doorway. In the shadows, something shifted between them. Years of unspoken feelings seemed to hover in the air. Joseph's heart pounded. He knew this was a line they should not cross. Employer and employee, widower and house help. Yet, there was an undeniable pull at that moment. He hesitated, giving her a chance to move away. But Zainabu stayed close, concerned and something warmer lingering in her eyes. Gently, almost questioningly, Joseph cupped her cheek. When she didn't pull back, he leaned in. Their lips met, tentative and soft. Zainabu gasped against his mouth, then yielded to the kiss. The floodgates of loneliness and desire opened in both of them. Joseph drew her closer, feeling her heart racing as fast as his. In the quiet night, under cover of darkness, they lost themselves in a kiss that felt tender and desperate all at once. One thing led to another. In a rush of pent-up emotion, Joseph rose, guiding her inside the house. The lantern cast golden flickers on the walls of the small living room as they clung to each other. He murmured her name, and she answered with his, voice trembling. Their hands explored what had long been forbidden. In a tangle of whispered apologies and aching need, Joseph laid her down gently on the sofa. Zainabu's wrapper loosened, and he paused, giving her one last chance to change her mind. In answer, she pulled him to her, face wet with tears, even as she pressed hungry kisses to his cheeks, his lips. Any hesitation melted. They came together with a quiet, urgent passion, stifling their cries so as not to wake the children. It was sensual and deeply emotional. Joseph held her as if she might vanish, and Zainabu clutched him as though drowning. In that union, they each found a balm for their loneliness. For a few timeless moments, they were simply a man and a woman in love, sharing a warmth in the darkness. When it was over, reality crept back in. Their breathing slowed. The night grew quiet around them once more. Joseph's arms were still around Zainabu, her head on his chest. But as the cool air brushed their damp skin, the enormity of what had happened fell upon them. Zainabu gently pushed herself away, quickly adjusting her clothes. "What have we done?" she whispered, voice full of guilt. Joseph sat up, the haze of passion clearing from his mind to reveal worry. "Zainabu, I'm sorry, sir," she choked out, not meeting his eyes. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Before he could say another word, she stood and fled down the hall to her room, closing the door softly behind her. Joseph remained on the sofa, heart pounding in the dark. He ran a hand over his face, still smelling a trace of her on his fingers. A wave of guilt and panic washed over him. How could he have let this happen? "Olorun," he swore under his breath, calling on God silently. This was wrong. He had betrayed his late wife's memory and perhaps taken advantage of someone in his care. What would people say if they knew? What would his children think? His stomach twisted painfully. He barely slept the rest of the night. When his eyes did drift shut near dawn, he dreamed of Adiola's face, etched with disappointment. He woke with that feeling of shame heavy on his chest. The next few days were agonizing. Joseph and Zainabu avoided each other except for the bare minimum interactions. In the mornings, she made sure the children were ready for school before Joseph came out of his bedroom. Conversations were cut, eyes averted. The easy laughter and trust they once shared had evaporated, replaced by awkward distance. Funmi, 13 and perceptive, noticed something was off. "Daddy, is everything okay?" Auntie Zainabu seemed sad, she remarked one afternoon. Joseph forced a smile and said everyone was just tired. But he knew this facade couldn't hold forever. They needed to talk, to somehow address what happened, but neither knew how to begin. 2 months passed in tense uncertainty, and then the consequences of that single night made themselves known. Zainabu missed her period. At first she kept it to herself, praying it was only late. But as the weeks went on, morning nausea set in. In secret, she obtained a pregnancy test from a distant pharmacy. The result turned positive almost immediately. Zainabu's hands trembled as she stared at the little stick. She was pregnant. She sank to the bathroom floor, heart thudding. A mix of fear and dread coursed through her. She knew, as per Yoruba values, This was a serious situation. Pregnancy outside wedlock, with her employer no less. Oma se o, she whispered, tears spilling. What would become of her now? Would Joseph cast her out in shame? Would the community label her a seductress? The weight of it pressed on her chest. Still, she gathered her courage. Joseph deserved to know. He had to know. That evening, after the children were asleep, Zainabu softly knocked on Joseph's bedroom door. He opened it, surprised. They had barely spoken beyond necessities. He saw her eyes red from crying, and immediately his stomach flipped with worry. Zainabu, what's wrong? She entered and shut the door behind her, wringing her hands. Her voice trembled. Sir, there's something I must tell you. She struggled for the words. Joseph's mind raced to all sorts of dire possibilities, but nothing prepared him for what came next. I am pregnant, she managed to say, looking at the floor. It's from that night, with us. For a moment, Joseph forgot to breathe. He simply stared at her, the words echoing in his ears. Pregnant. A baby. Their baby. God, are you sure? He finally rasped. Zainabu nodded, wiping a tear. Yes. I'm so sorry. He saw how frightened she was, and something in him stirred, a need to protect. He gently took her hands in his. Don't apologize. I am responsible too. His voice was low but steady. In truth, his mind was swirling with panic at the consequences. Yet, amidst the shock, there was also a surprising spark of warmth at the thought of new life. He pushed that aside for now and focused on her. Have you seen a doctor? He asked. She shook her head. Joseph inhaled deeply. We'll go together. First thing tomorrow. We need to be sure you're okay. Zainabu looked up, startled that he said we. You're not angry. He gave a weak, rueful smile. Angry at myself perhaps, but not at you. Never at you. He squeezed her hands reassuringly. A tear rolled down Zainabu's cheek, this time from relief. Joseph realized he meant every word. He would not abandon her or the child. Yoruba culture frowned upon what they had done, but it also taught that a man must take responsibility for his actions. He intended to do exactly that. The next challenge was enormous. Telling others. They agreed to keep the news private until they confirmed everything. At the clinic the following day, a doctor verified the pregnancy and estimated she was about 10 weeks along. Driving home, Joseph cleared his throat. We have to talk to the children soon, he said. His grip tightened on the steering wheel. I don't want them finding out from gossip. And I should tell my mother as well. His mother, a staunch Yoruba matriarch, would be heartbroken and furious, he knew. But it was better she hear it from him. That evening, Joseph called Funmi and 9-year-old Dele into the living room. Zainabu sat on a chair nearby, twisting her fingers nervously. Joseph's heart pounded. He perched on the edge of the coffee table, facing his children. There's something important we need to discuss, he began gently. Funmi immediately sensed trouble. She glanced warily at Zainabu. Dele climbed onto the couch, curious and unaware. Joseph took a breath. You both know Zainabu has been a cherished part of our household, almost like family. He paused. Sometimes, grown-ups make mistakes, or life takes an unexpected turn. What I'm trying to say is, Auntie Zainabu is going to have a baby. Funmi's eyes widened in shock. Dele's face lit up innocently. A baby? Like A little brother or sister? He blurted in excitement. Joseph managed a nod. Yes, a baby brother or sister. And I am the father. A heavy silence fell. The smile slid from Dele's face as he looked from his father to Zainabu, trying to process. Funmi, however, understood immediately. Her lips trembled. Daddy, what do you mean? She asked in a small, hurt voice. How could you be? She couldn't even say the words. She's our house help. Tears welled up in the girl's eyes. Zainabu started sobbing softly. Funmi, I'm so sorry. But Funmi shot to her feet, stepping back as if stung. You're sorry? How could you do this? She shouted, voice cracking. Daddy, how could you? Mom's barely cold in her grave and... She choked on her words, covering her mouth as tears streamed down her face. The mention of her late mother caught Joseph to the core. He stood quickly, reaching for his daughter. Funmi, please listen to me. But she shook her head furiously. I trusted you, both of you. Her gaze flicked to Zainabu, filled with betrayal and pain. Unable to bear it, Funmi turned and ran to her bedroom, sobbing. The door slammed moments later. Dele's chin quivered, eyes glassy with tears of confusion. Daddy, why is she so mad? Isn't a baby a good thing? He whimpered. Joseph knelt and wrapped his arms around his son. It is a good thing, my boy, but your sister is upset because it's unexpected. She'll need time to understand. He kissed the top of Dele's head, trying to soothe him. Across the room, Zainabu cried quietly into her hands. I never wanted to hurt them, she said between sobs. She felt heartbroken, seeing Funmi's reaction. The girl was like a daughter to her. I know, Joseph said, softly. He guided Dele over to her. The boy gently touched Zainabu's arm. Don't cry, auntie, he said innocently. It's okay. I always wanted a baby sister. I'll help take care of the baby. Zainabu managed a wet laugh and hugged the child close. His simple acceptance was a balm, though it also made her tears fall harder. Thank you, Dele. You're such a good boy. That night the house was divided by tension. Funmi refused to come out or speak. Joseph and Zainabu knew they needed to address the wider family soon. News like this would not stay secret. Indeed, in her distress, Funmi had sent a text to her grandmother, Joseph's mother, blurting out what happened. By dawn, the matriarch was at their doorstep. Joseph opened the door to find his mother, Mama Bisi, standing there with his elder sister. Both women looked grim. Funmi hovered behind them, eyes puffy. It was clear she had spilled everything. Mama, Ekabo, welcome. Joseph greeted nervously. Mama Bisi stepped in, leaning on her walking stick. She fixed her son with a disappointed stare. Joseph, Kinimogbo, what have I heard? She demanded sharply. Funmi says that girl is pregnant for you. Tell me it's not true. Joseph opened and closed his mouth. He felt like a scolded child. Mama, it's true, he said quietly. Zainabu is pregnant. Ofi ayin mije, his mother cried, collapsing onto the sofa. You have brought shame to my back. She covered her face with her wrapper in distress. After all our warnings, see what you've done. A widower sleeping with the house help. Oma say oh. Joseph's sister tottered and shook her head at him. We know you've been lonely, but this? Have you no self-control, brother? Meanwhile, Zainabu had emerged from the hallway, drawn by the commotion. The poor young woman stood wringing her hands, then slowly went to her knees before Joseph's mother. "Good morning, Ma," she said in a tiny voice, eyes on the floor. I'm so sorry for disappointing you." Mama Bisi lifted her head and looked at the trembling girl kneeling before her. She had always been fond of Zainabu, but now sorrow and anger warred in her expression. "Ah, Zainabu, I took you like a daughter, and this is how you repay us?" She gestured helplessly. "How could you let this happen?" Zainabu's shoulders shook. "Mama, it was a mistake. I never meant for this. I take the blame. Please don't be angry with your son. It takes two, and he's certainly not blameless." Mama snapped, then sighed heavily. Her wrath was already softening at the sight of the young woman's sincere remorse. "Stand up, my dear." Zainabu rose, head bowed and cheeks wet. Funmi glared at the floor, arms crossed tight. Little Dilly peered out from behind his aunt, sensing the gravity, but not fully understanding. An uneasy hush fell until Joseph cleared his throat. It was time to face the consequences. Like a man, he stepped forward and addressed his mother and sister directly. "I won't excuse what I did. I take responsibility. I intend to do right by Zainabu and the child." His sister raised an eyebrow. "And what does doing right mean here?" Joseph drew a breath. He glanced at Zainabu, then back at his family. "I will marry her if she'll have me." Zainabu's head snapped up in surprise, eyes wide. Funmi gasped. Mama Bisi was clearly startled too. "Marriage?" she echoed. "Yes, Mama," Joseph said firmly. "It's the proper thing now. I know this isn't how a union is traditionally formed, but our Yoruba custom also teaches that one must not abandon a woman carrying his child. I care about her, and I'm prepared to make her my wife." A silence followed his declaration. Then Mama Bisi let out a long breath, the tension draining from her shoulders. She loved her son and knew he was a good man at heart. If marriage was his solution, it showed he was serious about making amends. "If you're truly resolved, then we will support you to do it properly," she said. She turned to Zainabu and gently took the younger woman's hand. "My daughter, this is not the way we would have welcomed you, but we will do what must be done." Her voice was calm but firm. "Your family will be informed. We will meet them for an introduction ceremony, and then a small wedding. No more secrecy or shame. We must preserve what's left of honor in this." Fresh tears coursed down Zainabu's cheeks, this time out of gratitude. "See, Mama." "Thank you, Ma," she said, squeezing the older woman's hand. She could hardly believe the turn of events. A moment ago she feared being cast out, and now they were talking of marriage and acceptance. Funmi looked from her grandmother to her father and to Zainabu, struggling with complex feelings. Her voice was soft and plaintive as she asked, "Daddy, do you really love her?" That was the question burning in the young girl's heart. Was this just a duty or something more? Joseph walked over to his daughter. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "I will always love your mother, Funmi. That will never change. But I have come to care for Zainabu very much. She has been here for us through our hardest times. I'm sorry I hurt you by not being open about it." He knelt to to look for me in the eyes. I hope you can forgive me. We want you to be part of this because you are my child and I love you. Funmi's face crumpled. All the anger she had held onto began to thaw in the face of her father's earnest remorse. She threw her arms around his neck, crying. Joseph hugged her tightly, tears in his own eyes. Over her shoulder, he saw Zainabu watching, one hand over her mouth, emotion shining in her face. Mama Bisi stood and nodded decisively. It is settled then. We will prepare for a wedding and welcome a new baby soon. This family will remain united. She placed her hand on Zainabu's belly in a surprisingly tender gesture. The child in here is my grandchild. We take care of our own. In the days and weeks that followed, the storm calmed. Under the guiding hand of the elders, Joseph visited Zainabu's village to pay respects and pay the bride price, adhering to Yoruba tradition so that their union would be seen as proper. A small ceremony was held where kola nuts were shared and blessings given. Gossip in the community died down when it became clear Joseph was not abandoning his responsibility. In fact, many neighbors quietly praised the pair for doing the honorable thing. Funmi, while still healing, gradually warmed to the idea of a stepmother who had, in truth, long been like a second mother to her. And young Deli eagerly told anyone who would listen that he would soon have a baby sister or brother. One balmy evening, a few months later, after all the upheaval, Joseph and Zainabu sat together on the veranda of the same house where their journey had changed course. The power was out again, but this time Joseph had lit a lantern and its gentle light fell on them. Zainabu's belly was round and ripe under her loose dress. Joseph placed a protective hand there, feeling the baby stir beneath his palm. Funmi and Dele were inside, dozing off to a late-night film, comfortable and secure. The worst had passed. Joseph looked at Zainabu, her face peaceful in profile. "How are you feeling?" he asked, softly, referring to more than just her health. She turned to him with a small smile. "Grateful," she said simply. Her eyes shone with quiet happiness. She reached up and touched his cheek, the gesture now familiar and loving. "Thank you, Joseph, for standing by me, by us." He shook his head and drew her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. "We stand by each other," he murmured. In the soft night air, he began to sway gently